Hey, welcome. And I'm really happy that you're here to talk about imposter phenomena and all sorts of ways to deal with it when it makes its unwelcome appearance. You may have noticed that I'm not calling it a syndrome or a diagnosis, and that's by design. It is neither of those things, both of which imply something fixed and pathological. One of the first tools, and it's a super powerful one, is to pay attention to the language that you use to describe things. Language is one of our most powerful tools as humans, but it can also get us in trouble, and this is one of those situations where it can. So I'm using the word phenomena deliberately because it implies something that comes, and at least as importantly, it implies something that goes. And I am not going to give you any empty promises about vanishing it or conquering it or making sure it never enters your studio life again. None of that stuff, because it's going to be around. But by the end of today's talk, you're going to have so many ways to respond to it that allow you to keep working and keep focusing on the creativity instead of on fighting these voices. I'm Rachel Davis. I'm a mixed media artist in the San Francisco Bay Area, and for the past 30 plus years, I've been a psychologist in private practice and also a one-on-one creativity coach. I'm going to be stopping that part of my life at the end of 2022. And for the past 5 years, I've been a fine artist myself, so I know this terrain from both sides of the couch. And stay tuned. We're going to start getting into what to do when it comes really shortly. I'm going to run through a lot of material fairly quickly here. There is going to be a PDF available. You can just look below for how to get that, where I spell things out in some more detail and more leisurely. I want to start with a definition. The essential quality of imposter phenomena is one of feeling like a fraud and feeling like people are going to find out that you're a fraud. And when they do, people in your group, your preferred, desired group, when they do, your social standing will be diminished, perhaps to the point of you being pushed out of the group. Because it's such a powerful social signal and we are social mammals, it is very usual for people when they're in the grips of this kind of set of feelings, and I'll talk in a minute about how these feelings can be on a continuum. But when you feel pretty swept up in it, it's very typical to withdraw and isolate, which is the absolute worst thing you could do, but completely understandable given what you think the consequences would be if people found out about it. So a word about the continuum. I mean, it's possible in your creative life that you can go through a period where these fraudulent feelings are nowhere to be found. So if that's true for you, don't feel like you have to go looking for it. It's also possible that you may have the feelings, and this is what we're going for, like you having the feelings on some level, but the volume being kind of low. And maybe, I'll talk more about this later, maybe you being even kind of bored by the feelings because they've come and gone so many times that you know this is just part of the process. So maybe they're there and you're working anyway. For some people, some of the times, they can become so strong and so paralyzing that you're not working at all. You're not at your piano, you're not writing at your desk, you're not in your studio, you have just stopped attempting to be creative. So I don't know where you may fall on the continuum. For most people, they've sort of gone up and down on different levels of it. If you recognize yourself from the definition I gave earlier, I want you to know you're in excellent company. I find this statement from Oprah Winfrey very powerful and telling. She says that pretty much everybody she's ever interviewed has said one or another variation of the following: was I okay? This just comes with the territory of putting yourself out there. It may take the form of something like, maybe you're beginning as a creative and you're thinking like, who do I think I am calling myself an artist or a novelist or a musician? Who am I kidding? It could be that. It could be that you're an established artist of some kind of creative. You've been at it for years and years, but you feel like right now I'm just phoning it in. I haven't had a new idea and who knows how long. People are going to find out and then it's going to be over. It's going to be curtains. So what tends to happen? Three things. You tend to feel like you have earned your misery, like you're ashamed and you've earned it because you really are a fraud. You feel like you're uniquely so. The isolation, you're not really sharing it with other people, so the isolation makes you feel like you're alone with your suffering. And you also feel like this is just true about you. It feels like forever and that it's true. These qualities, they're sort of shamey qualities, are very sticky and oily, and it's kind of hard to shake them loose. We actually have an excellent antidote for shaking it loose, and that's self-compassion. However, there are these things that get in the way of people accessing self-compassion. So that's what we're going to talk about next. The two big resistances to accessing self-compassion, which there's, again, a huge body of research that talks about the brain chemistry of how it actually quiets down your fear system and accesses your care system. I'll go into some of that a little bit more in the PDF and more elsewhere. But people think two things. They think that, A, I don't deserve it. Other people may deserve it, but I really don't, because I really earned this crappy state I'm in by what's wrong with me. The second is people have a conviction that if they're too compassionate with themselves, they're going to lose their edge, or that compassion is for weak people who aren't prepared to look closely at what their mistakes are, that if they access that, their standards are going to fall down and they will never do anything good again. And interestingly, the brain seems to reward this kind of thinking. It kind of feels like you're doing something when you go round and round telling yourself this over and over again. So it's very easy to get into a stuck loop where you're talking about it endlessly. I have a different way. It's not me. I mean, I didn't make it up, but there are different ways of thinking about compassion. There's a whole school of people who study this. Kristen Neff is the person most well known for studying self-compassion. And she has a whole, not angle, but a whole different way of talking about it. It's something called fierce self-compassion. Another way that that I like to think about it is self-compassion as your soul's adrenaline. Because when you tap into it, there is the capacity to have your own back and be motivated to actually do something positive for yourself, which as a creative might mean that you take the class that you need to take to get better, rather than beating yourself up for not being better yet. It might mean that you just get into the studio and work. That would mean being fiercely self-compassionate on your own behalf, saying, I'm really struggling, and if I stay here beating myself up more, I'm going to just struggle more. So I need to get better, and the only way to get better is to get into my studio, so go. Next up, I'm going to sample from 3 categories of tools that are all helpful, and again, there'll be many more details in the PDF and elsewhere. The first category is the distancing category, or the perspective getting category. And here, basically, we're trying to look at the imposter phenomena, not from it. My favorite new tool in this is something called Name It to Tame It. Let's say you're in a particularly bad way and you are just torturing yourself and you feel horrible. What you would do is you would simply say, whoa, am I torturing myself today? I'm having a hell of a time and nothing I'm trying is working. I just cannot snap myself out of it. That simple act of labeling it, putting words to it, activates your cerebral cortex, which is the last part of our brains to have evolved. And it deactivates the amygdala, which is the part of our brain that we share with lizards. It's stunning how effective this is, so I want you to have that. There are some, I'm not going to have enough time, so there are many, many more tools along this path of distancing. And I'm going to invite you, if you have some of your own after you read the PDF, to send them to me so I can include them in later versions of the PDF. The second class of tools has to do with connecting with people. And I like to credit Annie Lamott, who's a writer, wonderful writer in the Bay Area and nationally known, who says, I think of my mind as a bad neighborhood. I shouldn't hang out there alone. And it's true. I mean, shame and imposter phenomena, turbocharged by shame, really thrives in the shadows. So you need to bring people in You're so not alone. If you talk to other people about this, they're going to say, I've been there too, and it's going to help you. The third category, when you're really, something that I'll talk about more in the PDF, when you're below the line, meaning you're just not reachable by reason anymore, you need to recognize that that's the case. I'll talk more about how you recognize that that's the case. But once you do recognize that you're not reachable, then you want to distract, hopefully not with things that are self-destructive. So I want you to come up with a list of distractions when you're feeling better. And they might be taking a walk in nature if that's your thing, or listening to some soothing music, or watching Netflix. It doesn't really matter. It just needs to be a set of tools that works for you. It's also useful to have people on call who know about this, who you trust, who you can say, I'm below the line, I can't be reached. Talk me through it or keep me company till I get to the other side. The last thing that we're going to talk about, and I'll talk about it much more in the PDF and elsewhere, is how to really get a very well-developed sense of what you care about, what your values are. Because frankly, if that's not well-developed, why would you put yourself through this other stuff? It's not pleasant. And you need to have that other really clear, and I can help you get there so that that's what's magnetizing you in your life. That's what's principally driving you, rather than the fear. I don't want anybody to get to the end of their life filled with regret about what they didn't try. And there's a very intimate connection between what you want and what you're afraid of. You wouldn't be as upset about feeling like a fraud about this if it didn't matter to you so much. So we're going to turn the volume way up on that. All sorts of tools for that I haven't had a chance to talk about yet. But reach out. My email is rachel@racheldavisstudio.com. racheldavisstudio.com is the website. Instagram, all this stuff will be on the bottom as well, but some people don't like to read that, is racheldavisart.bayarea. Let me know what you think about this. Share it far and wide. I want people to have this information. And subscribe to my channel. And thanks for watching.